when I was successful at Chicago, no one was questioning if that was risky or if it was the wrong thing to do. They were congratulating me on a gutsy move. So I think really what it boils down to is people were judging the outcome and not my actual attitude about it, because my attitude has always been, I've always been a risk taker. That has never changed, and it probably never will.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 189 of the Running for Real podcast. I am so excited that you are here today. This is going to be a bit of a strange, monumentous moment on this episode. I am excited to bring back my good friend Sarah Crouch onto the show. Sarah is one of my nearest and dearest friends, and you have heard her. I think I've had her twice maybe on the show before, and I know you guys really love the episodes with Sarah because she is so kind of down to earth, and we just kind of talk as if you're not even listening, and I know you enjoy those episodes. But today I wanted to bring Sarah back on the show because she does have some exciting news to share, which is actually public, so it's not like I'm breaking this news, but she does have some news which some of you may not know. And also because as of next week, Sarah is going to start taking over some of the episodes of Running for Real while I am on maternity leave. As I've told you a few times, I have recorded ahead of time, so I have 3 months worth of episodes ready to go while I am kind of getting to know my new baby. And Sarah, I asked her if she would record 4 of her own during that time, so I only had to catch up. Well, I think it ended up being I had to catch up 10, and then she has 4. And so she has 4 episodes herself, which she is recording as the host, as the guest host of Running for Real podcast. So I wanted you to get to know Sarah, and we kind of talk about the process, why we decided to do that. We talk about what's happened since the last time I spoke to her, and there has been a lot. She has been through a lot of setbacks, and you may or may not know about them, but she has really, really been inspiring with the way that she has approached her life, and I'm looking forward to hearing how these episodes go. So before we get to that, I just want to take a quick moment to thank one of our sponsors. Then we'll be right to the episode with my dear friend, Sarah Crouch. Thank you to my wonderful friends at Ultra for allowing me to do a giveaway for providing 12 pairs of shoes for my community for free. And you can enter to win a pair every month, a pair of Ultra shoes of your choice. You can go to ultrarunning.com and you can pick whichever ones you want, whichever ones your heart desires. If you are the winner each month, if you enter once during any month, you will be entered automatically into every month following that for the rest of the year. And I'm so thankful that I have a sponsor who is not only willing to help me, but also help my community, because I realize that running shoes can be expensive, or, it can be kind of scary to try a new brand. And I'm excited that they give the opportunity for people to try new brands. But also, I love hearing your feedback about how you are enjoying the switch when you make that change over to Ultra. Just makes my heart so happy hearing how much you appreciate it. And just as I haven't done it in a while, a reminder, my favorite shoes, I love the Escalante. That's probably my favorite of all. The Taurin is a great shoe if you want to make a transition over to Ultra and you're using another brand. I also love the Cayenta for racing and the Escalante Racer for racing. And the Provision is actually one with a kind of more of a support, like a arch support within it. And I've really been enjoying that kind of in my pregnancy time because it helps with my arches, which, as many of you know, are not particularly good at holding themselves up during the end of pregnancy. So that's one that I have really been enjoying there. So you can go to tinamuir.com/ultra. That's tinamuir.com/ALTRA, and you can enter to win a free pair every month. My dear friend, Sarah Crouch, I am excited to welcome you back to the Running for Real podcast. And I can't wait to share many announcements with you, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, my darling. I'm happy to be here. It's just the 4 of us sitting here across the screen.
You've just revealed one of our secrets.
That's right.
Without even trying to.
Maybe they haven't done the math yet.
I'm having twins. No. No, I'm not having twins. There you go. That is piece of news number one. Sarah is also pregnant, which you should know by now, but if you do not, now you do. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to have Sarah on today because as this is coming out, it is going to be the beginning of June, and Sarah, as of next week, is going to be taking over 4 of the episodes in the coming months. So that, I love Sarah's interview style. Actually, I say I love Sarah's interview style. I don't think you've ever done an interview where you've been the host other than me, but you tend to turn yourself into the host when you are being interviewed.
Yeah, I was going to say I did interview you once.
Sarah likes to ask questions back, so she definitely has some experience with interviewing people, even when she's not meant to be the interviewer. So I thought, why not give her the opportunity to do some of her own? And then that also gives me a bit of stress off because that's 4 less episodes to record. And so she has some really exciting ones coming ahead.
Tina, what are you going to do with your time off?
Oh, I just lie around and watch Ellen, and it's not like I'll have a baby to watch over who is like 24 hours a day or anything. Just thought I'd chill. Felt like I deserved a break.
Vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I'm fully intending on it being a madhouse, especially as Bailey is in that, like, I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't like this, I don't like me. So I'm assuming I'm going to have my hands full with that. So, but yeah, I'm excited that you are going to be taking over some of these episodes. And so today I thought we would kind of go over what Sarah's been up to. The last time I had you on the show, it came out February 2019. So I'm assuming we recorded in January, and a lot has happened in your life since then. Yeah. We've already mentioned one of the things. So I wanted to go over that and then just kind of introduce everyone to you, who we do have many new listeners now. So introduce everyone to you so they feel a bit more comfortable next week onwards with your episodes that you will be taking over. So, Sarah, for someone who has never heard of you, doesn't know anything about you, what would you describe yourself as?
Do I have to use different words than I used on the last podcast where I described myself?
Yeah, but I would hope in some ways you have changed a little. Like last time we spoke, it was definitely running was the priority here, whereas you've had a lot of reality checks over the last year to make you realize there's more to you than that.
Yeah, what's really strange about that is being pregnant right now. It feels very strange to tell someone I'm a professional runner because I am not running for a living right now. I'm certainly not. So I am a small business owner. I am a birth doula. I actually work with women during labor and delivery. My husband and I co-founded a business where we host running vacations during the summer. So I'm excited about that as well. I am also a running coach. I coach about 40 athletes all over the country. And at times I am a professional runner. So that's me in a nutshell. But beyond that, I've been a good friend of Tina's for a really long time. I love anything right-brained. I'm very creative. I like to paint and read and draw. And I actually just finished, I don't know if I told you this, Tina, I just refurnished a Victorian dollhouse. I don't know why, but I was like, I need to do this. When we're done, I got to take you upstairs and show you it because it's really beautiful. Every now and then I'll get almost like, in pregnancy, you have like food cravings. I have like activity cravings. And I was like, I have to build a dollhouse. So I did.
It's amazing.
But yeah. So
how amazing will that feel if you have a little girl that can play with that?
That's what I was thinking about. Because when I was a little girl, you tell me if maybe it's just my grandma, but I thought all grandmas were like this. Up in her attic, there was like orange shag carpet on this tiny narrow staircase, and you would climb all the way up, and it smelled like dust bunnies up there. And she had the most beautiful Victorian dollhouse. And I was obsessed with it when I was a little girl. Did your grandma have one of those too?
No, not that I can think of. I mean,
you know what? You can come over and play with mine. That's okay.
Thank you. Maybe I'll go back to my childhood and I'll do that. 40 years down the road.
I know it's such an 80-year-old activity. I don't know why I did it now, but
I love it. That's so cute. And a good description of yourself. And as you guys can tell, Sarah wears many hats and does them very well and is very descriptive, as you heard with the way you described your grandma's house, whereas I would never think that. I just love how detailed you are and how you pay attention to things. It really is something I've always admired about you and just loved about you. So people are definitely getting a kind of understanding of you in general. And it's funny you mentioned about the don't know what to say thing. I've been at that stage for years now because like, I'm like, when people like, you know, how do you know this friend who I know in St. Louis? And I'm like, well, I am a professional runner, but not really. And then they knew me because they were like a quote unquote fan. And then like, it feels so awkward explaining it to people because you're just like, yeah. Because if you said I'm a professional runner, they'd be like, but you're pregnant. And I know that's not obviously a stopping point, but you're not, like you said, racing to win things at this point. I
think about like, let's say you were a kindergarten teacher and you were pregnant and you were on your maternity leave and someone's like, what do you do for a living? You're like, well, I'm a kindergarten teacher. And I think it is because of the instability. It's the unknown of being like, okay, some women return from pregnancy stronger and some women don't really ever come back. And it's like, you look at the Olympic trials and there were 3 out of the top 8 women are mothers. So it's certainly possible to come back and be even stronger than ever. But I think when women get pregnant, it's this massive question mark, such that we have never, ever faced with in our running careers. Even injury doesn't do this to us, you know?
Or even how long. I mean, if you think of Sally Kipyego, you know, she came back, but I think she had a baby in like 2017, was it? So it's taken her a long time. And you would think someone like that would be able to bounce back very quickly. So yeah, I think you're right.
I think so, yeah.
You'd never really know, but it is a really strange place to be in for us. And it's nice for me to hear someone else saying that same thing because I've struggled with it for many years. Yeah. But let's
especially I was going to say too, especially as your body changes, because if you tell someone you're a professional athlete, you know, because right now, like I'm at the stage where like my jeans don't fit me, but I haven't committed to maternity clothes. So like in Mean Girls, when Regina George said sweatpants are all that fits me right now, like that's the stage I'm in. So I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a professional athlete as I have this gut hanging over my jeans. You know what I mean?
I remember that so clearly. And like wearing a pair of jeans, I don't know if you I had some of those, I don't even know what they are, but they're like, it's like a band of material that goes over your jeans. So you can leave your jeans unzipped, but they don't fall down.
This is the wonder of living in 2020. Instagram somehow knows that I'm pregnant. And so I'm seeing ads I see ads for those like every day. And I'm like, I got to get one. Did you actually find it worth the money, do you think?
Well, my sister had them, so she sent them to me. And if they weren't my sister's, I would have sent them to you, but I feel like I should probably not keep sending her stuff around. But yeah, no, I think they were worth it, but mostly just for like going out in the evenings and stuff. My sister had 3. I think that was a bit excessive. I would just probably buy one. But yeah, overall, I think it was helpful, especially because like you said, a lot of things don't fit. But this time around, I didn't really use them. I mostly just kind of lived in, for me, Lululemon makes these pants, I think they're called Wonder Under. And I have worn them. I'm still wearing them up to this day. And I remember wearing them all the way through pregnancy. And I don't know how they do it. They're not maternity pants. They fit me really well when I'm not pregnant, but they somehow just fit. So for you and anyone else, I would recommend those. They're like $100. So they're quite expensive, but
worth it if you're wearing them every day of your pregnancy.
I pretty much live in them, and I have one pair of maternity jeans, and that's, or maybe 2 pairs, and that's it. But okay, I want to go back in time here. So I said I last talked to you February 2019, and that was one where you kind of interviewed me to ask about how life had changed. So we didn't really even get on to you that much. However, I don't know if you'll be able to remember back to February 2019, but I think the next big thing that we should talk about is April 2019. I think I said 18 a minute ago. I meant 19. April 2019. Tell us what happened there.
Oh, man. Well, to back up even further, 2018 was a dream year. It was everything I had ever wanted in my running. I had gone 4 years without PRing. And then all of a sudden in 2018, I was running times faster than I ever thought I would. So that was an incredibly good year. And I remember ending 2018 feeling like, wow, sky's the limit. 2019 is going to be even better. I'm going to go run under 70 minutes in the half. I'm going to run 2:28 in the marathon. And what happened was, I think after Chicago in 2018, I tried to come back really fast. I got a little greedy, and I see athletes do this all the time. And I just want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them and be like, don't do it. Because I paid the price. I only took 3 days off after Chicago, and then I launched right into a marathon buildup for CIM.
Can I just add, I did delicately try to shake your shoulders, but you'd be like, nope, I made my mind up.
so many things over the years that I feel like you just gently smile at me. And then later I'm like, oh yeah, Tina told me about this. It was the same thing with running in pregnancy, because I was like, oh, Tina, I'm going to go run 70 miles a week consistently. It's going to be no big deal. And then as I just told you before we hit record, I was like, yeah, I haven't run in like 3 days. And you're like, well, yeah. So yeah, you did. I was fairly warned, and I ended up injured with an injury that just persisted all the way through the CIM buildup and eventually took me out of the race at mile 22, I think.
Which I just want to add, CIM is what, 6 weeks after?
I think it was 8 weeks. I think it was a good 2 months. Yeah.
Okay,
maybe 7 or 8. Yeah. But then before Boston, I was having pain in a slightly different area, like almost down toward my knee and my femur. And I trained on it all the way through the buildup, but it just wasn't right. Something just wasn't right. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I ended up getting a test done the week before Boston. I decided to go get an MRI, and I got the results I think it was like the day before I left for Boston. So I was already on my way and going. And the result came back that there was a stress reaction at the distal end of my femur. So I kind of was faced with this choice, and I'm just going to be really transparent about this in terms of how we make a living. When you are a professional runner who goes to a big race, generally you can count on an appearance fee, and sometimes that's it. So basically meaning they give you a set amount of dollars and say, okay, if you run the race and if you finish, this is the amount that you get. If you do not finish the race, some races cut that amount in half. Some races say you don't make any. And then there are races like Boston that does have stipulations like, okay, if you finish outside the top 10, we're going to cut it by 25%. If you finish, slower than this time, we're going to cut it by another 25%. It's a very tricky, volatile way to make a living. So I go into Boston, and for me, it was a fairly big payday, big enough that when my femur fractured at 13 miles, and I had 13 miles to go, basically knowing I was just going to have to jog it to the finish or stop, my decision to finish was like, okay, I either make this paycheck for my spring or I don't.
And you knew based on where the injury was that it wasn't going to be a case of you resting for 2 weeks and getting back out there.
Yeah. So the way I figured it was, okay, no matter what happens, like I'm out, I'm done for a while. And, I was pretty harshly criticized for that decision by a lot of people. I remember, Tina, like I was sitting in the airport leaving Boston, and I had posted about it, and I had shared honestly, like, okay, I chose to finish the race with a stress fracture. And, some runners on Twitter really went after that. And I remember calling you and I was crying, and I was like, Tina, like they are just tearing me apart on Twitter. And I remember what you said. I will never forget it for the rest of my life. But you were like, no, Sarah, they're not tearing you apart because you're too strong to be torn apart by something like this. And that meant so much to me. So I just want to say now, a year later, thank you. But also, I think the problem was that a lot of people looked at that decision and said, well, you're a role model for young girls. Like, how could you condone finishing a race on an injury? And the way I think of it is like, okay, obviously I'm not Michael Jordan. I'm not at that place in the sport, but Michael Jordan, when he, went to the NBA championship with the flu, and he fought as hard as he could, and he won his team. He scored like an insane amount of points, won his team the title. He wasn't advocating that when you're sick as a dog, you go play basketball, but he was doing his job. And for me, it wasn't, the stakes weren't as high as that, but they were high enough for me that it was worth it. And 100 times out of 100, I would have made that same decision. I've thought about it a lot since, and I don't think I'd change it. And beyond that, after Chicago, where I was the first American and I set a PR, I had gotten a tumor removed from my quad just 2 weeks before that. And when I was successful at Chicago, no one was questioning if that was risky or if it was the wrong thing to do. They were congratulating me on a gutsy move. So I think really what it boils down to is people were judging the outcome and not my actual attitude about it, because my attitude has always been, I've always been a risk taker. That has never changed, and it probably never will.
And you had talked it through before Boston as well. Like I remember we ran the day before. And we talked on the phone when you found out your MRI results. And, I, along with many other people you had, well, not many, but the people you had shared with had kind of, really said to you, like, are you prepared to take, I think I remember saying, like, are you prepared to take 6 months off if this fractures? Are you prepared to, get to a point where you literally cannot run another step? Like, and you said, yes, I'm kind of at peace with my decision. I know like you said, the risks, and for me, it's worth it.
Yeah. And beyond that, and they changed the rules since, but here's what I was up against too. at Boston, they had made a ruling and it had just come out and they said, look, if you want to run the Olympic trials and make the Olympic team, you now have to hit this certain time standard to go. And the time standard was like 2:29:30, which I figured I was in shape, but I didn't know if I was quite enough in shape to do that. But what it boiled down to was that was my chance to do it. So it was like, okay, either I hit the Olympic standard and I'm good to go and the leg doesn't fracture and I'm all set for the trials, or I don't hit it anyways. So the risk was quite high. But yeah, I mean, I remember that talk we had. No, I didn't really share with many people. I think you were one of the only people I told heading in. I remember that run we had the day before Boston, and you were kind of up against your own. Yeah. We had that run with Carrie. That's right. Yeah. I love Carrie. Yeah. But Tina, like, I remember too, it's like, cause you were up against your own stuff too, and it's like, you had a lot of eyes on you. And in a way it was kind of your return to, not to professional running, but you were going to give it a go. You were going to not jog the race. And that was scary for you too. So it was almost like we weren't in the same boat, but it was, do you remember our hug in the hotel after the race? Man,
that was I'll say, just to tell people some context, and there's a bit of a funny story with that. So I had a flight that afternoon, I think at like 3 p.m. or something, like really close. And I was worried I wasn't going to make it. So I had my mum and sister-in-law go to Sarah's hotel with my suitcases from our hotel. And I was going to go to Sarah's room to shower and then go straight to the airport. My family couldn't get in the hotel because it was the elite hotel, very heavily guarded. And I remember firstly I walked past a certain Mr. Salazar as I was walking into the hotel. And I remember being very aware that was him. But then I got to the entrance and I can't remember exactly why they didn't let me in. I had carried my driving license for the whole race because you said, make sure you bring an ID. But I think maybe it was you had me under Tina and my ID said Christina or something. But either way, they were like, we can't let you up to this Sarah, you claim, room. And I was standing there like kind of helpless. I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like how do I get up to her? And then Ben Rosario walked behind the desk and I was like, Ben, can you tell them I'm okay? And he's like, yeah, she's good, let her in. And I was like, oh my God. Like if he hadn't walked past, then I don't even know what I would have done.
Though, the thing is that hotel was full of runners, probably 50% of which knew you. So I'm sure if he hadn't walked by, somebody else would have.
Yeah, I was just so thankful that he happened to walk past because I was just like panicking. And yeah, we didn't have long. I went straight up. I showered. I think we had like less than 10 minutes to hug and just talk. And yeah, we'd both had quite an emotional race. Yeah. And then, say goodbye. And that was the last time I saw you, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So, that was hard, but a special moment I definitely will treasure, just being able to have that. So then, looking back on that injury, and I've already warned you that I'm going to kind of ask you this kind of stuff. So femoral stress fractures are often associated kind of, they're seen as one of the real bad ones, the red flag ones, the ones that like something is going on here. Can you look back now and see anything that you're like, yeah, that was probably it? Like, do you think it was just the training, like returning too fast? Was there any?
Do you mean was it nutritional at all?
Yeah, could that have been part of it? Like, what you had to get a femoral stress fracture? There has to be some mistake you made somewhere. What do you think that was?
No, and that was the first stress fracture I've ever had. And yeah, a stress fracture is always a red flag in training or in racing for anyone, especially I think it's more of a red flag. Let's say I have an athlete who's only running 25 to 40 miles a week and they're ending up with stress fractures. Something's really, really wrong there. And in that case, it's either a calorie or a specific nutrient detriment. In my case, I think overtraining was a big part of it. And I think it's also that coming off that high of 2018, the problem with running is that when you taste success, and especially if it comes at a certain level, meaning before Chicago running roughly 125 miles a week, your thought is, okay, to hit the next level, I've got to do more. And I think part of it was that I don't think I was eating quite enough to make up for the amount that I was running. I can look back now and say, okay, or especially looking at pictures and say, I think I was a little too thin heading in, which is never something that in the moment, it never struck me as a possibility. I'm like, well, no, I eat a ton, but I think I definitely underestimated the sheer amount of calories I probably need to eat running that amount. And then also when you don't take big breaks after a marathon. You never really get to fully reset. So the problem is you're already in that hole of both calories and mileage, and then you just continue digging deeper, deeper, deeper.
And you didn't rest after you found out the injury after CIM. What did you do there?
I did rest, but I cross-trained all the way through it. Yeah. So I didn't take that full reset that I needed to take. And legitimately, I think, and especially having gone in afterwards, that injury from CIM, it still bothers me when I run. I've thrown thousands of dollars at it and seen like 4 different physical therapists, and it still bothers me. And ultimately what happened there was like, I actually tore part of my hamstring and calf. And it just hasn't healed properly. There's been scar tissue, and it's been extensive rehab for that. And the problem is that when you do get greedy in this sport, the consequences are often extremely far-reaching. Sometimes they're permanent, especially with hamstring injuries. They can, if they're chronic, they tend to last for a good 4 to 5 years. So yeah, it's lessons that I've had to learn the hard way. But it's like anything in life. If you tell someone, you'd be like, well, learn from my mistakes. But, every kid's got to touch that hot stove once. You've kind of got to learn it for yourself. And I think now on this side of it, I have learned. I like to think I have, but I'm sure there's other mistakes I haven't made yet in my career that I'm sure I will later on.
Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, Tracksmith is a Boston-based brand led by a group of runners who are committed, and I mean committed, to making classically stylish, cutting-edge apparel. Their goal is simple: craft the most considered products on the market for runners dedicated to the personal pursuit of excellence. And I'm not just talking about those who are chasing sub 3 in the marathon, or even chasing a Boston qualifier, chasing sub 20 in the 5K. I'm not just talking about the top level. This is anyone who has a love for the sport. And the word amateur comes from the Latin word for lover. And in that sense, we're all amateurs. And this love we see it come out in so many ways within runners. We see that dedication that runners give, the getting up so early in the morning, the squeezing runs in anytime, the running around parking lots when you don't have any other option. We runners really dedicate ourselves to the sport, and we deserve something to go with it to help us to make that journey better. Tracksmith designs all their products to solve the kind of problems that amateur runners face, whether that's a breathable long sleeve shirt that can be reworn without washing, or the perfect shorts to go with your long run with room for your keys, phone and fuel. Tracksmith is the one that sweats the details so you don't have to. Now, I've been telling you each week about something that I've really been enjoying, and today I want to tell you about the turnover tights. Now, when it comes to bodywear, runners need materials that fit close to their skin without restricting our range of motion. Tracksmith's turnover tights use their Italian-made Inverno blend. It's a specialty knit with smooth yet durable face that fends off light precipitation and a soft brushed back that provides a barrier between you and the fabric to improve your temperature regulation. Pretty cool, huh? That also speeds our drying times. You will never feel a running tight like these. They are so comfortable. I absolutely love them. I've even been able to wear them in the later stages of pregnancy because they just fit so well, and they can work around that. If they can work around a 3rd trimester bump, they can definitely work with everyone listening here today. So you can get 15% off your first order if you are brand new to Tracksmith by going to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. That's tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. That's TINAMUIR. If you enter code Tina, you will get 15% off your first purchase. There is a reason so many of you have been going for this lately. You get it. You see the special in this brand, and I truly do too. I can't wait to hear what you think.
It's like anything in life. If you tell someone, you'd be like, well, learn from my mistakes. But, every kid's got to touch that hot stove once. You've kind of got to learn it for yourself. And I think now on this side of it, I have learned. I like to think I have, but I'm sure there's other mistakes I haven't made yet in my career that I'm sure I will later on.
Yeah, well, I think we're constantly going to be tweaking that and you would think that you learn a lesson once or someone else learns a lesson once and then you've got it for life. But even if you learn it, you find that you still kind of end up in a slightly different situation, which isn't exactly the same to trigger that kind of learned response, but it's close, but you still don't get the memo. And then you make basically the same mistake. But I think we're constantly trying to be better at learning. And you know, you just said earlier that you've had that kind of reality check again with running through pregnancy. And yeah, like us talking a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and you saying, you know, I'm going to keep running. I'm going to run twice a day. So that I break it up. And I was kind of like, yeah, you know, it's okay if you take days off. Yeah. Like, don't worry, don't stress about it. And then again, you know, it's taken you less time and a less extreme response. But I still think, yeah, you're right. Like we shouldn't, we as runners are always going to keep kind of pushing the envelope. And that's what makes us, you know, who we are.
And tell me if you agree with this or not, but I think this is part of it. And I kind of get upset when I meet women who are like, oh, I loved being pregnant. I felt so good. And really what I think it boils down to for us, for women like us, is that already pre-pregnancy, we are, you know, for the most part, we're eating healthy, we are exercising, we're doing all the things, we're hydrating. And then we get pregnant and it's like, I can't exercise the way I want to. I can't eat the way I want to. And it's like most women, they get pregnant and they think, oh, well, I should probably clean up my diet and take out caffeine and exercise. So of course they feel good because they're living way better than they did before. Yeah. Versus for us, it's like my lifestyle is significantly poorer than it was, you know, a few months ago. And I think that's one of the reasons I've had such a terrible first trimester. And I'm going to be honest with you, like I had a corn dog for breakfast and that's a lie. I had two. So, cause it's like, I've noticed, with pregnancy, and you and I have talked a lot about like food aversions and cravings. It's like, I literally cannot trust my gut. Like I eat something once and then because I feel nauseous, my body's like, well, that made you feel sick. So you're not going to eat that again. Mm-hmm. And that has really come back to bite me. Did I tell you about the Arby's incident?
No, go on then.
Oh, no. So let me preface this by saying, Tina, I have not been to Arby's in like 20 years. Confess, have you been to Arby's in the last 20 years?
I haven't, but in my first pregnancy, I had Burger King and Wendy's. So
did you? Yeah. Burger King actually sounds pretty good right now.
Burger King and Wendy's, those are the two.
So here's what happened. I had one day where I woke up and I was like, if I don't have an Arby's beef and cheddar, I'm going to die. Like I have to have this. So I literally drove, there's one Arby's and it's all the way on the other side of town. I drove 30 minutes. I ordered 2 massive beef and cheddar doubles, which was like $15. And I pulled into the corner of the parking lot and I ate probably in a span of like 6 minutes, both of these massive sandwiches. And like, it was so bad. Like there was sauce like running down my chin and falling onto my pants. And I just didn't care. But then I'm like, okay, I need a way to recreate this. So I go to the store and I get like all the ingredients that I need to make these sandwiches. And I had to throw all of it away. Cause the next day I was like, if I even think about a beef and cheddar, I'm gonna Ralph. Like it's so bad. Does that happen to you where you want something so bad? And then the next day you're like, I will vomit if that even.
No, I don't think I've had it where it's switched off like that. I have had those things. Like I remember specifically in the first time around going to the store at like 4 a.m. to get Pop-Tarts because I decided I wanted Pop-Tarts.
What flavor of Pop-Tarts? Was it something specific?
I think it was the strawberry. It was the basic one. No, I haven't really had that. This time around it's been very different. As you know, last time was like real intense cravings, like, and I told you about this, hadn't I? How like I couldn't stop like thinking about these things. And I said to you, if you follow your cravings and you eat the things that you crave, they will be the best thing you've ever eaten in your entire life. And you, my friend, do say that quite a lot about a lot of foods. But I was like, this genuinely does feel that way. Like it's the most tasty thing you've ever had. Even
it just hits the spot. Yeah.
But I had that a lot last time around. And I think I told you about the tomato soup thing. Did I?
No.
The first time around? So one of my phases was tomato soup with grilled cheese. So I found this New York Times recipe for tomato soup and we made it. It made this batch. This tells you how big the batch is. It called for 1.5 pounds of butter in this batch. So that tells you how
butter is that?
That's I buy the like Kerrygold blocks and the big blocks, and there was 1.5 of those. Well, no, it must have been more than that. Anyway, so it was these massive batches, and so I'd make it, and then I'd freeze some, and we'd pull it out, and then I made it twice during pregnancy to have with grilled cheese. And each time it was the best thing I'd ever had in my life. And I thought, I said to Steve, like, this is so good. Like, this recipe is just the best. And then a few months after we had Bailey, I said, you know what? We should have tomato soup. I'll get that recipe out again. Or maybe it was just pull out maybe the last bit of the one that I'd made. Mm-hmm. And so we made it and we had it. And I remember saying to Steve, I was like, this doesn't taste right. I think I must have made it wrong. And he was like, nope, it tastes the same as it did the 12 other times we had it. But like,
oh my gosh.
because of
I
the
wonder
taste
if the whole time was he just like, oh my gosh, this tomato soup sucks. Like,
probably. Well, no, probably not for him, because he's just like I could, as we've talked about many times, I could spend 4 hours on a meal. Both of our husbands are like this. Could spend 4 hours on a meal and they're like, yeah, it's good.
It was fine. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. If
So
they say, oh yeah, that was really good, then you know it was like exceptional. Yeah. So what about like aversions? Like, is there anything where like you walk in the house and like Steve is cooking someone, you're like, get out of this house right now?
Well, that's
like,
what I was going to say. This time around, no. This time around, I haven't really had it either way. I've had a few things that have sounded like orange juice. I can't get enough of that. Like just guzzling it out of the jug thing. But I've had a few things that I've really like enjoyed. But for the most part, last time was very high and low. It was like the idea of a salad made me want to vomit just thinking about it. Or like fish or garlic or anything strong last time I hated. But then there was those intense cravings for those like jalapeno chips and then Marmite. Do you remember that one? And
I remember that.
Grilled cheese and tomato soup and whatever else. And then this time it's very much kind of, I've been in a very sad state. And I've told you this, that like, nothing sounds good. Like every time I walk in the kitchen, I'm like, ugh. Because it's not like I don't want to eat. I know I need to eat, but I just am like, what sounds so... And I literally, I swear to God, I open the pantry door and the fridge door about 25 times a day and just am like, oh God, like what?
See, I have to hold my breath when I open the fridge door because the smell of it is just like so foul. And I keep being like, something's going bad in the fridge. And Michael's like, no, like you're pregnant. And it's so funny because I thought beforehand, I was like, oh, that's going to be the fun part, like the food cravings and all that. No, this is the worst part. It's awful. I do have to ask you, can we stay on pregnancy for a few more minutes? Because I have a question for you.
Okay, but I want to tell people listening, we are going to go back to running in just a minute. And there's a lot more of exciting stuff that Sarah has to share.
I just have to ask you a question. Have you had any like notable instances of pregnancy brain? Because it's a real thing.
Not as much this time, but last time I remember having it so bad so often. But no, this time, not as much. I mean, I've missed some phone calls, forgotten about things, but maybe I'm just like more like forgiving of myself this time, but not really that I can think of. I have used it as an excuse a few times when I've messed up and been like, sorry, pregnancy brain. But no, why? Have you had something?
Just one time, you know, because I remember in your last pregnancy, you told me you like couldn't remember like the words for things. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was trying to tell Michael something. I was like, and so there's one place in town. I was like, oh, you're going to turn right by like the Cracker Barrel. And my brain could not think of the word for Cracker Barrel. And what came out of my mouth, I was like, you're going to turn right at the Crockett Rocket.
Oh my God.
My brain's like, that's close enough.
Did he know what you meant?
He just stared at me like I had grown another head. He was like, the Crockett Rocket. All right, we can move on. I'm sorry. I just had to share that.
That is good. That's a good one. But no, it is real. And I remember that so clearly the first time around. Like you'd be like, for anyone who like is wonders what we're talking about, like you'd be like, the word for an envelope, you would be like, you know, that thing that you put a letter in and then you stamp it and you put it in the mailbox, and like it'd be a word like that you've forgotten.
Letter foldy card.
Yeah. So it's just like a weirdest thing. But yes, I love that story, and I'm sure people are cracking up while they're running along.
I'm like crying even when I think of it. I'm like, why did my brain think that was like a suitable substitute?
Because you are pregnant.
Yeah, there's pregnancy dreams, but let's not even get into that.
Yeah, those are intense as well. All right, we'll get back to pregnancy in a minute. But before we get to there, let's talk about the rest of 2019. So where we left off, you weren't even, you'd had Boston, you fractured your femur in the Boston Marathon. Then what happened? Because, you know, we're over a year later. So tell us about the rest of 2019. And even if someone was following you before and they've been following your journey, you kind of maybe seemed to somewhat disappear for a while. So what was going on there?
Yeah. And it's tough because especially with social media, and I know I fall into this too, but it's like you tend to post when things are going well and you don't when they're not. And, you know, it's really, it's a temptation, especially when you're on the other side of a journey or if you're just coming back, to post and to say, oh, I'm so glad to finally be coming back from this. And it's been such a long journey and I've learned so much, even when you're still in the thick of it, even when you're still struggling, rather than being honest, which is something you do that I really respect on your social media, is you're like, hey, actually, I'm going to tell you how it is right now, not how I want it to be, but how things are going right now. And I don't think I did that enough or at all, because 2019 was an absolute, it was a disaster running wise. And, I took the time off that it took for the femur to heal. And
Which
then
was
just
how long?
10 weeks of nothing and then some cross training and then gradually easing into running after that. I only attempted one race that whole year, and that was a half marathon up in Montreal that was slower than my marathon pace by minutes. It was really, really bad. And I finished limping, and I remember calling you that day and I was like, I think I'm done. Like, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And you and I had several conversations throughout the fall because I kept going back to, well, I'm qualified for the Olympic trials. Maybe I'll make a run at it. Well, maybe I'll try and do a marathon here or a half marathon there. And it just was kind of the case where I was clinging on to this hope of, well, if I can get healthy, then I still have X amount of weeks to do this or X amount of weeks to do that. And the trouble is just, I just never really got healthy. And I ended up hitting a pretty good block of training. But by the time I hit that at the end of 2019, it's like, it didn't feel like my mind was really in it.
Yeah, I could tell. I think that, I think after that Vancouver race, would you say Montreal?
Montreal, yeah.
Montreal. I remember saying to Steve, I was like, she's not going to make it to the trials. I was like, her body is there, but mentally she hasn't admitted it to herself, but she's let go.
No. And I think I was just like you. It's like, I think before you hit that point, you go through a long time of denial. You go through, or a period of denial. I think for every runner, it's different, and there, again, for both of us, that's not to say that I won't come back and look at, like, Sarah Hall. How old is she now? 37?
I don't know. I have no idea.
So it's like, I think about women like that, or like Kate Landau, who I'm going to interview in a couple of weeks, being in her early 40s and running 2:31. It's like, I have years ahead of me. I'm only 30.
So many examples. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it is tricky because, like, with the Olympic trials marathon, I've qualified for 3 and I haven't run a single one, which is really strange. And it was kind of a bummer to miss out, especially because my sister ran it, which was exciting. But yeah, watching it, I didn't wish I was out there, if I'm honest. I no part of me wanted to be running.
Yeah.
So.
And that shows that you made the right decision. And, going back to that kind of coming back time, I think a lot of people can resonate with that, because when you do tend to get a big injury, that is a time that, in our heads, when we get the injury, we say to ourselves, okay, I'll take the time off I need. I'll rest. I'll, do all the extra stuff that I need to be doing to keep myself healthy. I am not going to let this happen again. And then I'll come back and everything will be great. And I'll, have this as my goal. And sometimes that works, but most of the time you get another little injury, or it's taking longer than you thought, or, there's so many different ways it could go, but it rarely kind of goes of this like textbook journey back. And I think I am fortunate in one of my injuries. I did have that, being that national championship that I've always talked about with you. Like, that was such a special one. That was the one you won. Division 2 this is. But for me, I finished 5th or 6th. And I was so proud of that. More proud than any of my higher up finishes because of what I'd been through. But that rarely happens, where things kind of come back together. And I didn't win. I didn't come second. I didn't come third. So it, it didn't maybe happen quite as well as maybe I could have hoped. But I was so over the moon. But for the most part, it doesn't work like that. So tell us about that. How were you feeling mentally during the rest of 2019? Like, were you in that kind of like, just give me a break? Or were you able to take it day by day?
What I think it was more of, and it's funny because I remember you and I had this conversation when you quit running, and you told me that for, the first time before you got pregnant, and you were like, I was afraid to tell you because you love running so much. You had told me that I loved running more than almost anyone you knew. And the truth is, like, when you're injured long enough and you don't have any answers, that to me, that's what kills your love of running. And I got to the point where just going outside, it became a matter of, okay, it's not about if it's going to hurt. It's like, at what point in this run is it going to become an issue? And when it just wears on you day after day after day. It's like, if your running is this like okay, so imagine you're running as like this thing inside you, this like ball of light but it's like every day as it, as it turns inside you, but you're hurting. It's like it darkens just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, until eventually that light just goes out. And, maybe it's not even clear for me. And I don't think the light is out because I still, when I'm out there, I still enjoy it. But I definitely got to a point where I was like, what's the point? And it's a hard truth to admit that the vast majority of runners, that's how their career ends. It's not like you finish on this massive high and you decide to walk away, which in your case, that's the exception to the rule, is to say, I hit a massive goal, I
did, but I also went through that time after CIM before I did it where I was so miserable because I was in that same point you were like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I think even if you do walk away, and even the people who, let's say they win an Olympic gold and then they walk away, they still probably sit there wondering, could I have done another round? And they've got a different kind of regret.
But here's the great thing about it. And I actually realized this when I was watching the trials. So this, and especially with the Olympics, because it's like, it seems like when you tell someone that you're a professional runner, like what's the first question they usually ask you?
Have you been to the Olympics?
Yes. Are you going to the Olympics or are you an Olympian? And I think it's perpetuated that like the running world kind of works in these like 4-year cycles around the Olympic Games. But a lot of the women who qualified for the trials this year, right? So you see a lot of the women at CIM who run like 2:44:55, and that's like the best moment of their life is crossing that finish line. The trials to them, the actual event, the goal, the race, like it was just another marathon where they placed 20th or 50th or 300th. The thing that mattered was the chase. It was actually the journey towards the goal. Yeah. So really, I think the trials itself didn't mean much to them. Honestly, it's just another race where it's like, okay, they placed what they placed and it was great. But really the happiest moments of their life are in the journey towards that. And so I think with any injury or with pregnancy, if you can see it as like a very unique chapter in your journey, then it's a lot easier to stomach. But I think we preach a lot on social media and just in our culture about like surrendering to things. But that's so hard for us to do, particularly as like type A professional athletes. It's not an easy thing to do. We expect linear progress, and when it doesn't happen, we get frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's most people listening. We like to be in control of things, and we like things to go our way. And I think, like, as you said earlier, with pregnancy being difficult, I think that is a lot of it, that your body, as I say, your body is not your own. And during pregnancy, and that's hard because you are used to saying you will do this, whether you like it or not. Whereas pregnancy, your body is like, I'm not doing this no matter what you tell me. And so your body is telling the mind what to do rather than the mind being the one telling the body what to do.
You know where that is especially true is in labor. And I've realized this being a birth worker. And
you're not supposed to be using that word. Remember?
Oh, I'm sorry. What is it's the birthing time.
Yes.
That's right.
Sarah is using this method called Hypnobabies, which I use. And she read about it and she is going to use it, but
it's my birthing time. Yes. So I for right now, I'm going to refer to it as birthing time. Well, it's good practice. It's hard for me to do though, because
it is hard to switch. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, the first birth that I worked, it was 27 hours. And at the tail end of it, everything had gone, fine. The baby was born, and the midwife who was there delivering the baby, she's talking to the new mother, and the new mother was just like, oh, I'm so tired. And the midwife was like, well, yeah, sweetie, you just ran a marathon. And I was like, Joyce, excuse me. I run marathons for a living, and it is nothing compared to what this woman just went through. And I think what it is that in a marathon, it's voluntary. Like no one's holding a gun to your head. Your brain is choosing like how far you go into that dark place of suffering. But in your birthing time, your body is holding a gun to your head. It's involuntary. Like you don't get to choose how far you go into that place. You can choose different options for, here's my exit, I'm going to bail out here. But I can't help but think of like the millions of women who like gave birth before pain medication was available. And for the most part, it's like, okay, they survived. And I think if birth makes you a better runner, it's because it reframes in your mind how much pain you're actually capable of withstanding. I think that's probably the main benefit as a runner. But I always think that's funny when people compare it to a marathon, because I know both. And it's like what it is, honestly, it's like the intensity of a 5K for the duration of an ultra marathon. That's what it is.
Friends, friends, you've probably heard me saying over the past few months that I am currently taking 3 months off from working while I enjoy time with my new baby. Now, please make sure I stick to this. If you see me doing things, work online, that is time for you to get in touch with me, say, hey, what are you doing online? Now, I will let you know my assistant, Amber, is going to be taking over some things for me. Some things I have prepared ahead of time. But if you notice that it seems to be very real time, please let me know, because I promised myself I would take 3 months off and I need to be able to stick to that. Now, that being said, there is one thing that I am continuing to do during this time. Not these podcasts. These podcasts were recorded ahead of time. You've got these interviews to enjoy. There will not be a break in episodes during this time. And I'm really thankful for guest host Sarah Crouch for taking over some of those. But the one thing that I am going to be doing during this time is writing my email newsletters on a Monday. Now, there's over 7,000 of you already signed up for these emails. I know you love them. I love seeing your replies come in every week. And you can sign up at tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber. All it is kind of an update, something I'm thinking about for the week, something that I'm appreciating, and it really makes you think. I love that I have the ability to get into people's heads and really make a difference. And then at the bottom, I give some things I'm enjoying, some updates, just some things that you may have missed throughout the week that I would have shared. And it's just something that's very kind of friend to friend. It just feels like I'm emailing you just to kind of let you know my updates. And I would love for you to be a part of the 7,000 other runners who are on this list. You can go to tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber to sign up. And I will see you every Monday.
If birth makes you a better runner, it's because it reframes in your mind how much pain you're actually capable of withstanding. I think that's probably the main benefit as a runner. But I always think that's funny when people compare it to a marathon, because I know both. And it's like what it is, honestly, it's like the intensity of a 5K for the duration of an ultra marathon. That's what true. It is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an interesting way of thinking about it, and very true. So tell us about the doula thing. Was that something you had always thought about? Was that something, I mean, I know the answer to this, but was that kind of I need something else to like put to my name, to my identity? What was the reason behind that?
And it's funny because the very first podcast you and I did was on what? Do you remember? Very first one. It was years ago. It was on fertility.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked about, like running and fertility. So I've always been fascinated with childbirth and with fertility. I'm just going to be honest. I don't really like babies. I'm not really a baby person. If I could just skip like the first year, that'd be great. I like kids 2 and up, and that's fine, but babies are not my passion, but I love women. I love working with women, especially in childbirth. And the doula work, when I got my certification, it was 2 months after Boston. And I just decided, I was like, look, and especially because when you hit 30, and you and I are both in our 30s now, I hit a point where I was like, okay, I've been doing this professional running thing for almost 10 years and I haven't given anything back like to the world. I feel like it's a very selfish profession.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I wanted to do something that was as selfless as I could think of. And doula work is that, because unlike midwifery or like being an OB or someone who delivers the baby and is just kind of in and out, a doula is someone who is literally there supporting physically and emotionally for the entire duration of the birth. And the longest one I've worked so far is like 33 hours. So it's a long time, and you get done and you're depleted and tired and you don't get to run that day, and it's not about you. And to me, there's something so beautiful and fulfilling about that I've never gotten from running. The only thing that I'm worried about is I will have a doula at my own birth. There's a woman named Betsy in town who is a good friend of mine, and she's a doula. But I'm a little worried that now I've kind of seen behind the scenes that like she's going to say something and I'm going to snap like, shut up, Betsy. I'm not a flower opening to the sun. Like, how dare you?
Is that what you say?
No, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I feel like I've seen a little too much, so that does scare me. But I think that during your birthing time, you do go into a mindset that it's a different part of your brain. So I'm excited. That's the part I'm actually excited for is birth. I've always been fascinated by it. And
but don't you get to talk to, like, you'll have appointments with her before, so you can say, look, I don't want any of the like airy fairy stuff, like I need you to like be aggressive with me, or ask Michael or whatever.
like, I think a lot of the things that, and I have prenatal appointments with women where they're like, okay, they think they're going to want something and then they actually hit their birthing time and they want the opposite of that. So a lot of it's kind of like a dance. It's finding a particular rhythm that works for each individual birthing person. But yeah, I really think, I think it's going to be, I mean, I had coffee with her this morning. I think it's going to be a good experience, but you tell me, like, you've been through it and I haven't. Like, do you think it made you a better runner?
Yes and no. I mean, I haven't really got to the point yet where I think I had the opportunity to really test that out. Because I did that Disney race and I did Boston, and both of which I pushed really, really hard as I could have. But I also knew that I hadn't kind of gone all in with my training, and it didn't really matter the outcome. So I don't really know if I've had the opportunity yet to test and see that. But one thing, I've mentioned this before, I didn't find, is that I've heard so many women say they think of their child during their running and they think, and it helps them push forward, to push on and push harder. Whereas for me, I almost have to kind of forget that Bailey and this other one exists, because if I think about her, or if I thought about her during races, I'd be like, so why am I doing this exactly? Like, she loves me no matter what. Like, she doesn't care if I finish first or 50th or 512th. Like, so I found that I had to kind of compartmentalize the running.
Do you think that will chill? Okay, let's say that. Do you think that, like, okay, let's say she hits 10 or 12 years old and she starts to understand running and she wants to run herself and then looks up to you in that way. Do you think that would sort of change your mindset in racing at all? Of like, okay, I want her to see how hard I'm working and that it's paying off.
I think along the training and along the commitment and along the, belief, setting a big goal and going to get it. But the running itself, as you know, and you're the same way, like, I'm pretty good at like pushing myself to my limit, like, just naturally. And that's why I think I was able to do it at Boston, even though, I ran 2:58. It's not like I was trying to get close to my PR, but I couldn't help myself from pushing that hard. Even though I told myself I wanted to enjoy the race, I couldn't switch that off. So I think yes, but I don't know how much further I could actually push than I already would once I commit to it.
Isn't it funny how some people are like, I don't know how to switch that on. And you're like, I don't know how to switch that off. Like, I don't know how to get rid of it. I can definitely understand that. And part of me wonders, especially with the day and age that we're in with technology and with shoes and all that, like, if I even want my kid to enter the running world, like where it's at right now, because it does stress me out for sure.
So you did mention before that you would be more than happy to talk about that. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. The trials. The US trials, that is, but even just across the board, shoes have changed the game. And what's your take on it? So a couple days ago, I made a post on Instagram about how you were giving away when we were recording this a couple of months ago, Sarah. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry.
A while back, an unspecified amount of time ago, I made a post on Instagram about basically the individuals and the groups at the trials who chose to run in Nike shoes that had been spray painted black. And I said basically that their sponsors deserve better. And I got some backlash. People were saying, well, some of their sponsors gave permission. And, I have two main points to make about it. First and foremost, I stand by my argument that sponsors deserve better. Even sponsors that gave permission. Like, if 361, my sponsor, came to me today and said I could run in Nikes or any other shoe, I absolutely would not. Like, I'm paid a salary by 361. It's my job to represent them from head to toe and essentially to convince other runners that they make a product worthy of their dollar. Mm-hmm. So, like, honestly, the public isn't stupid. Like, average Joe watching the trials, if he sees someone running in a spray painted Vaporfly, the very loud and clear message that sends is my sponsor could not produce a product worthy of my performance. Therefore, they're not a company worthy of your investment. And that's the exact opposite of the message that we're paid to present as brand ambassadors. So, but secondly, and perhaps vastly more important, is that we live in a direct democracy. Okay. So, like, every day we vote, like, you vote for Shell or Chevron, Walmart or Whole Foods, Nike or somebody else. So Nike is in business and thriving because we as consumers put them in business and we keep them thriving. And there's no denying that, like, obviously they're on the cutting edge of performance footwear. Like they have been since Bill Bowerman poured rubber into a waffle iron. So, but this past year, like, honestly, what happened was like Nike presented us with a ballot, and they're like, okay, on the one hand, we promote the systematic physical and mental abuse of young women, and we believe in winning at the cost of performance enhancing drugs. And then on the other hand, they said, but we make the fastest shoes in the world. Now vote. And the way I see it is like the running community voted in such a way that said, well, shame about Mary Kane and all that, but I'm going to drop $250 on these shoes anyways. And the vote said that basically shaving X amount of seconds off your time in the marathon is more important than taking a stand against like behavior that's just appalling. And for me, like that's the part that's pretty unforgivable. So admittedly, I probably would have been less ticked off if they would have been spray painting Hoka's or Sauconys or like some other type of shoe. And I have to be honest about that. But the hard part was like I had a member of a group that I used to run for reach out to me and say word for word that I was spitting in the face of people that had supported my running. And that really stung because like I think it's one thing to be grateful for support and to like cherish memories running with people in a place that I loved. But you know this, Tina, like I have this like driving instinct to call out wrongdoing where I see it, and regardless of who I'm calling out. And I mean, honestly, the two people closest to me in the world, my husband and my sister, they both race in Nikes. So I know that like my hard line of what I will and will not do is not everybody's hard line or even everybody's gray area. And I have to accept that.
So talk about that. Like you just said, your husband and your sister running in them. Like for those listening who are thinking, well, how do you handle that if you feel that way about the sport? Like how does that not cause like a rift between you with them wearing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there's been tension. There's been tension because my thought is not only, despite the fact that I think Nike is a despicable company that does terrible things, I also feel that putting a carbon plate, or in the case of some of their shoes, putting 3 carbon springs basically in your shoe, I feel that strongly that is mechanical doping. But I also recognize that right now, I think I am the anchor in a changing world. I think we've gone too far to ever go back from that. I think this is the new status quo. Do you agree with that, by the way?
Yes, but I feel like I have less, I don't know. I feel like it's affected because I exited like I've talked about this a lot lately, that my PR 236 is impressive. And to everyone listening, they're probably like, wow, that's a really good time. But 236 in 2019, 2020 is not what 236 was in 2016. And so I feel like I exited the sport before any of this came along. So it's very easy for me to stand on the outside and say, and point a finger because I'm not in it. And I haven't been in it. So I do, I do agree. I yelled at my mother when she was here for, when we went to the outlets. We got there and I saw the swoosh on one of the buildings, and I said, please, Mum, just don't buy anything in there. And she came out, sure enough, with something from there for my brother-in-law. No. And she was like, well, I didn't know what to get him. And I was like, you could have got him anything. And it's my brother-in-law, he's not going to care if she didn't buy him a gift from her 1-week trip. So I do feel that, but I feel like I don't have the same passion because I wasn't in it. If this had been going on when I was in it, I think I would have been bothered. But then what do you think about the argument that people say, well, the other brands have, they're doing the same thing. They have, they can use their technology. They already had been using their technology with some of the elites.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I still think, well, first, I mean, as we talked about Nike as a company, it's like, I'm still clinging to the hope that like someday the company is going to be held responsible by the consumer for their actions. It just is not happening right now. In terms of the other companies like stepping up their game, I find that completely understandable. Even if I don't agree with it, it's the same thing as like, okay, let's say it was around 1900 and shoes with spikes were coming out. And I was saying, well, this is mechanical doping. Obviously now no one questions whether or not that's ethical. And it's possible that if this child in my belly, who's the size of a green olive, if they want to run someday, it may be the case that no one, the question of the ethics behind it is not even an issue. But for me, it's like, I look at, okay, so something like, let's take a bike in the Tour de France, right? So you can do a lot of things to a bike. You can make it lighter, you can make it faster, more aerodynamic, add more gears. All of those things are okay to me. But when you throw a motor into the cylinder of that bike, I have a problem with it. So I can't explain why my hard line is like, okay, I don't think I don't think this should have been done, but it's the same reason I would said I don't think we should have a motor and a bike at the Tour de France.
Do you think you would have felt the same had all these records not been broken in the last year?
Probably not, no, because I think the records they're the evidence that this was such a mechanical advantage. So for instance, like you running 236 in these shoes, the math plays out that that's worth a 230 flat. Like you should have run a 230 in those shoes. So for me, that's just further evidence of like what Sarah Hall called it was like it's causing a quantum leap in the sport that should not have existed. So it's the same thing as like, okay, if it's just advancements in footwear, at what point are we going to add wheels so we can coast down the hills at Boston? Because that's not okay. Everyone can admit that's not okay, but for some reason, basically running on a pogo stick is okay. You know, so I just feel like we had to draw the line somewhere, and I'd rather draw it before the carbon spring. And it seems like a lot of athletes would rather draw it after, particularly when they go into the trials saying, if I don't wear these shoes, I'm at a massive disadvantage because 99% of the field is wearing them.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part. And like you, I agree. Like I ran my fastest times in a pair of shoes without a carbon spring. And I was the fastest American in a major marathon beating people that had them in their shoes. And I am so darn proud of that, but I don't think that will ever happen again.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be so interesting. Like you and I going back into the sport, if we do, or you probably will, but if I do, in a few years' time, like how different that will be. And you will have to, you know, kind of make that decision. And, you know,
but if I do, you know, like if I do opt that route, it sure as heck isn't going to be Nikes. I'll tell you that. Like that's darker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we need to start wrapping up here soon, tell us finally about you've mentioned a few things about how you've been feeling. How has the transition been mentally, kind of getting your mind around the decision to step away, the decision to have a family? Tell us about, you know, did you go through weeks of kind of back and forth of like, am I ready for this? Am I not? Or like, was it, and all of a sudden like, okay, this is it? You
know, I feel like I've never had that, that gene that like made people like look at a baby and be like, oh, or like this feeling that women have from the time they're like 8 years old. Like, I want to be a mom. Like I never played with baby dolls. Like I never really had that. So in terms of starting a family, like I never felt like my life was missing anything. My husband, Michael, like he has always wanted kids. And, you know, it's a leap of faith because like right now, and I can be honest with you because this is, you know, it's us and it's for real, but it's like, I don't love this baby yet. Like I always find it so strange when people are like, you know, oh, I love this baby so much already. And it's like, you haven't felt it move. You haven't seen it. It's like, I have to take a leap of faith that at some point I'm going to birth this kid and then I'm going to fall in love with it and I'm going to enjoy being a parent. But right now I'm not there yet. If that's the honest truth. But I also like, I enjoy the relationship that I have with my parents now as an adult. And I think that raising a person or two to be kind and successful and make the world a better place, that part of it does appeal to me. So yeah, it's been a tough transition because I don't have those emotional fuzzies that make me feel like.
Pause you with that. With your sister had a baby, a year and a bit ago?
April, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, April will be a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by the time this comes out, we'll have a 1-year-old. Does no part of you think that, you know, myself going down this route, like maybe somewhat kind of made you like, huh? Mm-hmm. And then seeing Shannon go through this as well. You don't think even Shannon having Jack played any kind of like seed in your brain?
I mean, I have to say, and Jack is just the most beautiful little baby boy. And I love him with my whole heart. I do. He's incredible. And I see her and I think, you know, there is a part of me that says, I want that because I see how much she loves him. And I've never loved anyone in my life as much as Shannon loves her baby. You know, but I also have seen how hard this first year has been. And that's what scares me. It's like, I know about the sleepless nights and I know about the times that Shannon feels like she's going crazy and the changes that her body has gone through. And honestly, Tina, like, I'm really scared. Like, I'm really scared about that first year. And, I mean, it's definitely, he's cute enough to, I think, make anyone sort of want a baby. So it was kind of the same with you. Cause your sister's daughter, Charlotte, is just oh my gosh, she's cute as a button. So it's like, it makes you like say, oh my gosh, like I kind of want one of those. The same way that you see someone with a kitten, you're like, I want it. But you don't have to potty train that kitten, So I think that is part of it. It's like, it's this very, very much, I'm both attracted and repelled by the idea. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And
I hope my kid does. I'm going to delete this before my child is able to listen to podcasts. Okay. They're going to be like, you didn't love me.
No, I think that your child will understand empathy and compassion and will be so wise beyond their words that they will be able to look at this moment and be like, yeah, my mum is completely right with that. That is how we should be feeling, because by then they're going to be so like ahead of us intellectually that we're gonna
Tina, like even more so though, I'm thinking about you with Bailey. It's like I've seen some hard days and like some hard moments, but there's nothing in the world that could make you give her up. Like you love her more than anything. And I know I'm going to find that. And you were honest with me too. Like when you came home from the hospital, you're like, I asked you like, did you love her? And you're like, I didn't know her. You're like, I didn't know her at all. Like she was a stranger moving into my house. Like you have to, take the time. And I'm really glad you were honest about that, because I find it kind of disingenuous when I see women posting, pictures of their belly and they're like, I love this baby so much. I'm like, do you really?
Yeah. No, there's definitely up to 6 months, maybe a year, where you're kind of learning, like understanding this person. And I would say, it does go quite a long way before you actually get anything back. Like you'll just give, and you don't get anything. Like, you might get like a smile or a snuggle, but they don't care like anything. So yeah, I definitely didn't. I wasn't one of those people that, said we're so in love from day one, because, you don't know them, and it just feels like they're sucking you dry, like literally. Like everything in you is just being like you're being, kind of a bit like a vampire is like draining the blood from you.
Yeah.
Well, no, what is it? Hocus Pocus, where they're like, like that's kind of
like
the bit
sucking out your spirit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just imagine like in my life, like me holding my baby and just like my eyes are just dead. Like my soul has left my body. Like
it can feel like that at times though, with the hardest, especially because people don't realize it happens around the 6-week mark. Like you think the first few weeks are hard, but then you think you're getting the handle of it. And you'll be, suddenly you've got it. But then that 6 week, the wheels fall off. Everyone's stopped texting you and reaching out. And then all of a sudden you're like, the deprivation's caught up with you. It's just, there's some rough times. Speaking of which, can you hear my whining child outside the door?
I can't, but I know we're
trying
just
to get in. Oh,
she needs more blood.
Yes. Hopefully she's had some toast, so she's happy. But okay, Sarah. So you are going to take over this podcast for episodes. I will tell people now on the 12th of June, on the 10th of July, the 31st of July, and the 14th of August. Those will be all Sarah episodes. And as you can tell, Sarah is so easy to talk to, so easy to love. And she knows each of these people pretty well. So they will be nice and relaxed and, just great conversations. Is there anything you want to tell anyone before they go into your episodes next week?
Should I keep the guests a secret, do you think?
No, because I'm going to announce. I'll tell people the week before, so you can tell them who next week is now if you want.
Okay. The first one will be with Neely Spence Gracie, who Tina and I have both known for years and years and years. And I'm so excited to talk to Neely because she's obviously been on the same journey that you have been on, that I am on right now. And she came back and actually qualified for the Olympic trials after having her baby. So I think it's going to be a really poignant episode. And Neely is incredibly talented, and I think she'll have a lot to say about women in running, and she's a coach. She's just very knowledgeable and she's very bubbly, very bubbly too. So that should be fun. And you guys are, used to my stupid voice by now. So I'm sure you'll be excited.
They're going to love it.
Well, the way you said tomato soup and I just say tomato soup. I feel like it's a lot more eloquent when you talk, but
you need to start listening to some British podcasts, then it won't seem so exciting.
I have been watching British reality TV. That's been my my guilty binge. I watch one called Super Size versus Super Skinny, and it's just they put a fat person and a skinny person and make them trade diets for a week, and it's hysterical. Huh. It's unbelievable. I'm just gonna have to tell you all about it when we're done.
I've never even heard about that. There's one called Gogglebox, which I often hear Americans doing, which is a reality TV show where you probably would love it. You watch people watching TV. So you might watch them watching something that is like controversial or like just a bit crazy. Like, you remember we watched that program? What was it called?
Like their reaction to it? Is that
Yeah. So you watch their reaction. What was that program we used to watch? We didn't used to watch it. We would laugh at it sometimes. I shouldn't say laughed at it. We would watch it. About the bodies. Weird things in the bodies. Unusual bodies.
Oh yeah. It wasn't. It was like strange. What was it? I know exactly what you're talking about, though.
Anyway,
I know exactly
Gogglebox, you watch people watching TV. Like, you watch a family sitting around a TV and their reactions. And it's really funny. People love it. Great. So I thought you were going to say that. And I hear people saying that all the time. But I think you would get a kick out of it.
British, I just like to hear them call French fries chips. That's just my favorite thing in the whole world. So
it's a better way of describing them.
It really is. They're chipped potatoes. I agree.
Okay, Sarah, how can people find you in the meantime to go follow you?
Oh gosh. I never remember exactly what my Instagram handle is, but it's either, I think it's Sarah Crouch. Yeah, Sarah Crouch 1989. I literally just had to look it up. That's where I'm most active. I do twit occasionally, but not often. Don't bother. So I'd say Instagram is the best place to connect with me. And you can always shoot me a DM if you have any questions, especially about pregnancy. I'm loving talking to women who are runners, and from the side of being a doula. I think it's a really cool time in life to get to give advice and to share stories. Stuff. So
well, I'm excited to see how things transition and for you throughout this pregnancy, and I can't wait to hear your episodes. And thank you so much, my friend, for taking the reins for a few weeks.
All right, my love. I will talk to you soon. Okay.
My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Well, if you didn't already love Sarah, I'm sure you do after that. I know many of you are massive Sarah fans, and I know I am in capable hands. Whoever my guests are, I guess, are in capable hands with those episodes to come, with Sarah being the host. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that episode. Make sure that you go leave an iTunes rating or review saying that you are enjoying the podcast in general, or that you are enjoying Sarah as a guest host. Although if too many of you start saying that you'd rather her replace me, then I may cry, especially with kind of hormones flooding my body right now. But I'm sure Sarah would love to hear your feedback. Go tweet at her, send her Instagram messages, whatever. Tell her she's doing a great job with these episodes, which I am absolutely 100% confident she will be great. And I hope you enjoyed kind of getting to know her if you didn't already know her, or kind of hearing the many struggles that she's been through since this point, and obviously very excited for her and this new little life she is bringing into the world. So links to Sarah's stuff and everything we talked about today in the show notes, including the sponsors. As you heard, Generation You Can, Sarah is also a big fan of. So you can obviously check them out with 2 recommendations in this podcast now. You can also go thank the other sponsors for really being a part of my life and for just being there in a really tough year when things are going wrong. So I am so, so thankful for them. And you can find links at tinamuir.com/episode 189. Yes, we are only 11 episodes from episode 200. I am currently working so hard on trying to I really want to get a guest who I think would be an incredible 200th episode. I'm trying every lead I can possibly get to get that person on the show. It's not Brene Brown. I'm not quite there yet, but it's someone pretty big, and I really hope I can get them. If not, I will have to figure something else out to get us a really exciting 200th episode. Well, my friends, next week I won't be doing anything actually. Next week you will be hearing from Neely Spence Gracie with Sarah's first episode. So I hope you enjoy that one, and I will be back the following week. So I'll see you then.
thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.